Connecticut is populated by good, decent people who believe in the values on which America was founded, that all are endowed with equal rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In 2022, that includes a moral commitment to social justice. But sadly, moral sentiments are vulnerable to billionaires who can hire demagogues, hucksters, and lobbyists to play them like a cheap fiddle to achieve their own unjust enrichment by using social justice as a cudgel to neutralize locally elected zoning officials. And this is what's happening in Ridgefield. Call this cautionary tale Billionaires for Equity, who invest millions of dollars each year in this lobbying and advocacy effort through organizations like Desegregate Connecticut, the Regional Plan Association, the Fairfield County Community Foundation, and the Partnership for Strong Communities. And now their sights have been focused on Ridgefield. Monday morning, they alerted their so-called Ridgefield pro-home advocates to the public hearing on the Ridgefield euphemistically labeled Affordable Housing Plan. They admonished them to advocate for 10% of housing units to be, quote, affordable, which is a euphemism for low income restricted to people with incomes that are well below Ridgefield's median income, because these restrictions are based on Greater Danbury incomes, which are 63% of Ridgefield's median income, which pushes down qualifications so that very few who live or want to live in Ridgefield would qualify. They picked Ridgefield. Why? Ridgefield has 286 low-income restricted units. That is 3% of the total housing units. It has a 2% poverty rate. Ridgefield is one of only 70 Connecticut towns with a higher percent of low-income restricted units than its poverty rate. How much is enough? State Representative Kimberly Fiorello puts a rather fine point on it to Peter Harrison, appearing as a witness advocating for Desegregate Connecticut's plan to allow as-of-right multifamily development of 15 units per acre in the 500 acres surrounding Connecticut train stations and transit hubs, a proposal that could theoretically add 7,500 housing units in Branchville to Ridgefield's 9,400 total housing units, an 83% increase.
These are beautiful ideas in academia, but the truth of the matter is that this is an incredible pro-builders legislation that gives builders incredible as-of-right privileges in some of our most, sensitive and precious parts of our towns. So maybe I have one more question, which is, are you, Mr. Harrison, are you a lobbyist have you been hired as a lobbyist or registered as a lobbyist in our state?
Representative, I'm employee of Regional Plan Association, and as part of my advocacy in the session, as every other advocate, I register with the state ethics board for lobbying.
State Senator Norm Needleman thinks connecting these dots for you is some kind of conspiracy theory.
Because one of the advocates of Desegregate Connecticut works for a nonprofit in New York, are you implying that there's a conspiracy theory here?
But this should not be so easily dismissed. It is neither a conspiracy, which implies secrecy, nor is it a theory. These are facts in plain sight, not theoretical. Desegregate Connecticut makes no secret of its origins or that it remains a program of the Regional Plan Association. And if you wish to contribute, your donation goes to RPA Desegregate Connecticut and is sent to 1 Whitehall Street in New York. So if you want to find Desegregate Connecticut in the IRS database of nonprofits, you won't, and there's no publicly available information about the size of their budget or what they pay their executives. But there is no subterfuge about the Regional Plan Association, or RPA. They are dominated by billionaire developers like RXR and the Durst Organization. who are also generous investors. RXR was founded just 15 years ago and now boasts gross assets of over $22 billion from 83 properties, totaling over 30 million square feet, over 7,300 multifamily units, and all from an equity investment of just $8.7 billion. How do they do so well? They would say they do well by doing good and investing in economically distressed communities. But their nemesis are the locally elected planning and zoning commissions, who their social justice army is armed and directed to neutralize. And the Durst organization is privately held and provides no publicly available information about assets, revenues, profits, or ownership. But the nonprofits that serve as the lobbyists and social justice tools must file annually with the IRS. With the exception of Desegregate Connecticut, these lobbyist organizations are an open book of nonprofit tax returns publicly available online. Between these three organizations, they reported expenses in 2020 of $34 million. And their executives are often well compensated, very well compensated, with eye-popping six-figure annual incomes. They earn these salaries by advocacy and civic engagement with affordable housing, a euphemism for low-income, restricted housing, as one of their priorities. But the poor are not the only ones to benefit from such advocacy and engagement. These are cogs in a much bigger poverty empire, as described by author and economist, senior fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution, Thomas Sowell, to a black audience in 2010.
One of the problems in dealing with the politics of poverty and the programs for the disadvantaged in general, and blacks in particular, is that vast empires can be built on these programs. That these programs definitely prevent poverty among bureaucrats, economists, statisticians, and many others,
including billionaire developers. This is a development cartel that wants you to believe they support equity. But Billionaires for Equity is an absurd oxymoron. The Billionaires for Equity expect a handsome return on their investment in the hucksters and lobbyists who are skilled at playing on the moral sentiments of good people, to crush the authority of locally elected planning and zoning commissions, to deny the public any right to a public hearing, and to make multifamily developments as of right in any town, in any neighborhood in Connecticut, with less than 10% of the local units restricted to low-income households. The distinctive charm of Connecticut's 169 towns is to be sacrificed on the altar of uniformity by spreading equal amounts of poverty to all Connecticut towns. This is about as effective as rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. The poor will not benefit from this. Connecticut's communities will not be better places to live because of this. The most significant beneficiaries are the Billionaires for Equity and the hucksters and lobbyists they pay, who are highly skilled at preying on moral sentiments of Connecticut's very generous and neighborly people. They invent problems where they don't exist and exaggerate them where they do, and distract us from unjust enrichment of Billionaires for Equity. This can't be simply dismissed as some conspiracy theory. Ridgefield has its own housing Pied Piper, who has been on this mission for 20 years or more. David Goldenberg is suddenly Ridgefield's champion for local control and home rule.
The alternative is to do it our way. You know, people are talking about reclaiming local control from the state. Well, the way to do that is not to fight them on things that they're going to do anyway and allowed to do, but it's to do it our way and show them that we're making the strides that we need to make. This plan is about reclaiming local control for the town of Ridgefield. And I don't support the fair share law, but I'm telling you the reasoning behind it. And the purpose behind this whole report is so we can do it our way. I mean, there are only two ways that we can answer the need for housing. And one of them is to have the state impose its solutions on us, and if you look at some of the bills going to the floor, those are very imposing, or to do it our way. And so to me, this plan is all about local control. It's about recognizing that we have to do something. This is about doing it our way. State regulations, yes, have sapped local control. I am not a fan of 8-30G. I understand why they did it, but I think there are probably better ways to go about it.
Robin Caruso won't let Mr. Goldenberg's carefully chosen contradictory words go unchallenged.
That as the Affordable Housing Chairman, you support this legislation. You support Desegregate Connecticut. This was something from last year. Ridgefield, like most of Fairfield County's bedroom suburbs, is mostly white and affluent. Characteristics my wife and I didn't dwell on when we moved.
All right, you don't have to read the whole thing.
No, please do.
In 1991, we were drawn by the good schools, charming downtown, and a home with a stunning view. It's the kind of town you can fall in love with easily. Many people in places like Ridgefield believe that the segregation in our towns just happened, and that if we keep an open mind, it will simply unhappen. It won't. As scholars and authors have shown, as Richard Rothstein did in his widely read book, The Color of Law, segregation was designed into the suburbs through an ugly history of economic discrimination and exclusionary land use policies. And it will take equal intentionality to remedy it. The advocacy organization Desegregate Connecticut understands this, and it's why they're shrewdly focused on land use policy. Their modest proposals contained in SB 1024 would require some towns to allow certain types of multifamily housing where it currently is not allowed. I long approached this as a communications challenge. If everyone simply understood the systemic discrimination behind our land use and housing policies, they'd become advocates for change. But I was naive. I now believe the only way communities like Ridgefield will enact the need changes is if they have to. And that's why I enthusiastically support Senate Bill 1024 and hope the provisions excluded by the committee will be reinstated. When I ask my fellow Ridgefielders to envision the perfect town, most want to see Ridgefield become an inclusive community with meaningful economic and racial diversity. Yet they fear the change required to achieve it. And so Ridgefield, like our sister towns, lacks political will. Without an impetus to change, and that's Senate Bill 1024, the status quo will endure. I love Ridgefield in almost every way. It's a great town. If we can summon the guts to address the bias in our land use policies, someday it may even be perfect. I don't think you were very forthcoming.
No.
And I don't think you were transparent.
Amen.
And Dave, with all due respect, I request that you step down
Exactly.
from the committee and resign.
Such intellectual dishonesty and duplicity demands a reckoning. It has now invited Desegregate Connecticut to flood Ridgefield's public hearing on Wednesday. With such force focused on Ridgefield, you are invited to come and to speak up at the Ridgefield public hearing on the mislabeled affordable housing plan at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, May 25th in Town Hall, the large conference room. Ridgefield needs you. Please add your comments and like this video. You can reach me at editor@ridgefieldrecord.com. Thank you for watching.